What if the secret to success isn't IQ or luck, but your ability to read people like a book? This audiobook reveals the hidden art of social intelligence, the skill that shapes influence, connection, and power. Master it, and you'll never see the world the same again. Introduction. What if I told you the secret to unlocking every door in your personal and professional life isn't raw intelligence, charisma, or even luck, but something far more potent and shockingly underdeveloped? Imagine being able to walk into any room and instinctively know what everyone is feeling, who holds the power, and exactly what to say to spark connection, trust, and influence. Now imagine being able to do that consistently with bosses, partners, strangers, and friends. That skill? It's called social intelligence, and if you're not actively developing it, you're already falling behind. We live in a world saturated with information, but starving for connection. In an age of AI, automation, and algorithm-driven everything, the one thing that can't be replicated by machines, at least not authentically, is our ability to understand, empathize with, and respond to other human beings. And yet, most of us never learned how to truly read people, interpret subtle social cues, or navigate emotionally charged interactions without guesswork or anxiety. Instead, we fumble through conversations, misread intentions, miss opportunities, and wonder why we feel out of sync in relationships and teams. The truth is, intelligence alone won't get you ahead. Emotional sensitivity is not enough. The real edge, the invisible currency of success, is social intelligence. Let's get one thing straight from the outset. Social intelligence is not the same as emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is about knowing your own emotions and managing them. It's personal, inward-focused. Social intelligence is something else entirely. It's external. It's about how you perceive, interpret, and respond to others. It's about recognizing the emotions and intentions behind people's words, their silences, their body language. It's the uncanny ability to read a room, to know when to speak and when to listen, when to push and when to pause. Social intelligence is what makes some people magnetic, while others are forgettable. It's why some leaders inspire loyalty and others struggle with disengaged teams. It's why some individuals build powerful networks effortlessly, while others remain invisible in the crowd. Here's the twist most people don't realize. Social intelligence isn't fixed. It's not a gift bestowed at birth to a lucky few. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned, trained, and mastered. This book isn't about giving you surface-level tricks or vague, feel-good advice. It's a deep dive into the mechanics of social mastery, how to read people with precision, respond with confidence, and leave a lasting impression everywhere you go. You'll learn the unspoken rules that govern conversations, connection, and trust. You'll understand why you sometimes feel invisible, misunderstood, or drained in social situations, and how to turn that around. You'll gain frameworks that can be used in meetings, relationships, interviews, negotiations, and even high-stakes confrontations. Throughout these pages, we'll unpack the real-world applications of social intelligence in both your personal and professional life. You'll discover how to build instant rapport, how to navigate difficult personalities without losing your cool, how to decode hidden emotions behind facial expressions, and how to craft responses that disarm, engage, and empower. We'll dive into high-stakes scenarios, networking events, first dates, heated arguments, boardroom power plays, and break down what socially intelligent people do differently. Here's what's coming. You'll explore the psychological cues people don't talk about, but subconsciously react to. You'll learn how social dynamics work in both small groups and large organizations, and how to position yourself effectively within them. You'll gain insight into verbal and nonverbal communication, from vocal tone to micro expressions. And most importantly, You'll walk away with actionable techniques that don't just help you survive socially, but thrive. But let me warn you, once you begin developing social intelligence, you'll start seeing the world differently. You'll pick up on what's not being said in conversations. You'll notice how often people speak from insecurity, from fear, from habit. You'll start seeing how miscommunication derails relationships, how manipulation hides behind smiles, and how trust is both fragile and invaluable. You'll begin to see the emotional ecosystem operating underneath every interaction, and you'll know exactly how to navigate it. This book was written for people who are ready to move beyond awkwardness, self-doubt, or social burnout. It's for those who want to speak and be heard, connect and be respected. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, ambitious or anxious, rising in your career or rebuilding your confidence, you're in the right place. Because developing social intelligence is not about changing who you are. It's about unlocking your most effective, influential self. And in today's world, that's not just a nice to have, it's a must-have. So here's the challenge. What if, by the time you finish this book, you could walk into any situation, any conversation, and know with certainty how to connect, lead, and influence? What if you could finally feel at ease in your own skin, knowing you have the tools to navigate any social terrain? If that excites you, or even just sparks the tiniest bit of curiosity, keep reading. Because everything you're about to learn will elevate the way you think, communicate, and connect with the people around you. The transformation starts now. And once you see how powerful this can be, there's no going back. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Social Brain. The first step in understanding the power of social intelligence is realizing that human beings are, by nature, deeply social creatures. Our brains are not just wired to think and reason. They are specifically designed to connect with other people. This is not an abstract idea, but a scientific reality backed by decades of research into neuroscience and psychology. The brain has developed over millennia in ways that allow us to perceive, interpret, and respond to the emotions and actions of others. This complex system of connections is what we call the social brain. Before diving into the mechanics of the social brain, let's first recognize the sheer magnitude of social interactions in our daily lives. Every conversation you have, every interaction with a colleague, family member, or even a stranger on the street requires the brain to constantly process a vast array of signals, facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, and the unspoken nuances that convey meaning far beyond words. Our brain's ability to decode these signals quickly and accurately is a testament to how deeply we are embedded in a social context. Without this ability, our relationships, whether personal or professional, would be incredibly challenging. In this chapter, we will explore how our brain processes social information, how it allows us to connect with others, and how it shapes our understanding of the world and people around us. By understanding how our brains are hardwired for social interaction, we can unlock the potential of social intelligence and harness it to improve our relationships, our work, and our lives. Understanding the evolutionary roots of the social brain. Our social brains didn't emerge overnight. They are the result of millions of years of evolution. Early humans, like all social animals, needed to form strong bonds with others to survive. Whether in small tribes or larger communities, survival often depended on cooperation and mutual support. This drive for social connection became ingrained in the very structure of our brain. As a result, human beings evolved specialized neural systems that help us navigate the complex web of social interactions. The evolutionary foundation of the social brain can be traced to the development of certain areas of the brain, such as the prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and insula. These brain regions play key roles in processing emotions, reading facial expressions, and understanding social cues. The development of these brain areas helped early humans navigate their social environments, form alliances, and avoid threats. This evolutionary adaptation was crucial for survival, and it laid the foundation for the sophisticated social intelligence we possess today. One of the most fascinating aspects of the human brain is the presence of mirror neurons, which are specialized cells that allow us to empathize with others. When we observe someone performing an action or experiencing an emotion, these neurons fire in our brain as though we were doing the same thing. This enables us to feel what others feel and understand their emotions more deeply. Mirror neurons are a key component of empathy, and they form a vital part of our social brain. This neural mechanism allows us to connect with others on a deeply emotional level, and it is the basis for the powerful sense of shared experience that forms the foundation of human relationships. The role of the prefrontal cortex, a social decision maker. One of the most critical brain regions involved in social intelligence is the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the area at the front of the brain that is responsible for higher-level thinking, decision-making, and self-regulation. This area of the brain helps us make decisions based not only on logic, but also on social and emotional considerations. The PFC is what allows us to weigh social consequences, to choose behaviors that align with our values, and to regulate our impulses in social settings. When you meet someone new, the prefrontal cortex is at work. It's not just analyzing what that person is saying, but also interpreting their body language, facial expressions, and the tone of their voice. The PFC helps us assess the emotional context of a conversation and decide how to respond. This complex decision-making process often happens in split seconds, demonstrating just how deeply our brain is attuned to social interactions. Over time, these quick assessments become second nature, allowing us to navigate social situations with ease. The prefrontal cortex also plays a role in managing social relationships. It helps us maintain self-control in difficult social situations, whether it's restraining from saying something inappropriate or recognizing when to speak up in a group conversation. It helps us understand the emotional landscape of a situation and decide how best to engage with others. The prefrontal cortex's ability to process social information is what allows us to navigate the complexities of group dynamics, whether at work or in personal relationships. The amygdala, the emotional signal center. Another key player in the social brain is the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system. The amygdala is responsible for detecting threats in our environment and triggering the appropriate emotional response. This could be a feeling of fear when encountering danger or joy when seeing a loved one. But the amygdala's role extends beyond basic survival instincts. It also plays a significant role in social interactions. In social situations, the amygdala helps us process the emotional signals of others. When we see someone's facial expression, hear the tone of their voice, or observe their body language, the amygdala helps us interpret those signals and decide how to react. For example, if someone is smiling and speaking warmly, the amygdala signals that the person is approachable and friendly. Conversely, if someone is frowning or crossing their arms, the amygdala may alert us to potential hostility or discomfort. These rapid emotional responses are crucial for navigating social situations quickly and efficiently. Interestingly, the amygdala is also involved in the process of social learning. It helps us remember emotional experiences and associate them with certain people or situations. This learning process is essential for building social intelligence. Over time, as we have more social experiences, the amygdala helps us refine our ability to understand and respond to the emotions of others. This learning process allows us to adapt our social behaviors, becoming more attuned to the needs and feelings of those around us. The insula, a gateway to empathy. The insula, a region deep within the brain, plays a crucial role in empathy. It is responsible for processing bodily sensations and emotions, and it helps us feel the emotional states of others. The insula's role in empathy can be understood through its involvement in processing feelings like pain, disgust, and pleasure, emotions that we often experience when interacting with others. When we observe someone in distress or suffering, the insula activates, allowing us to feel a sense of shared emotion. This neural mechanism helps us empathize with others, forming the foundation of compassionate behavior. The insula is also involved in social decision-making, as it helps us assess the emotional consequences of our actions. It plays a role in moral decision-making, allowing us to consider how our behaviors affect the well-being of others. In this way, the insula is critical to our ability to connect with others on a deep emotional level. It enables us to recognize the emotional states of those around us and respond in ways that promote empathy and understanding. The insula's function is central to social intelligence, as it allows us to tune into the feelings of others and react appropriately. The brain's social architecture is incredibly complex, but it's also remarkably efficient. From the prefrontal cortex that guides our decision-making, to the amygdala that processes emotional signals, to the insula that allows us to empathize with others. Every part of the brain plays a role in how we understand and respond to the people around us. This chapter has only begun to scratch the surface of how the brain processes social information. In the next sections, we'll explore how these neural systems work together to shape our behavior in social situations. We'll also examine how social intelligence can be developed and refined, and how we can apply this knowledge to improve our relationships and success in both our personal and professional lives. Understanding the social brain is the first step in mastering social intelligence. By recognizing how our brains are wired for connection, we can begin to appreciate the power of empathy, communication, and emotional awareness in building meaningful relationships. In the chapters that follow, we'll continue to explore the nuances of social intelligence, equipping you with the tools you need to connect with others in ways that are authentic, empathetic, and effective. Chapter 2: The Nature of Empathy. Defining empathy and its role in human connection. Empathy is often referred to as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. But empathy is more than just feeling for someone else. It's a complex and dynamic process involving both emotional and cognitive components. It's the cornerstone of our social intelligence, a key ingredient that enables us to forge strong, meaningful connections with the people around us. In simple terms, empathy is what allows us to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, to feel what they're feeling, and to respond in a way that is supportive and compassionate. When someone shares their grief with us, empathy allows us to feel their sadness. When someone experiences joy, empathy allows us to celebrate with them. It is, in many ways, the thread that binds us to others, allowing us to relate to their emotions and experiences. However, empathy is not a one-size-fits-all concept. It comes in various forms, from the deep emotional resonance we feel when someone close to us is in pain to the more cognitive understanding of someone's emotions in a less personal context. While empathy can feel automatic, it is a skill, one that is shaped by both biology and experience. In this chapter, we will explore the multiple dimensions of empathy, how it works in the brain, and how it influences our social interactions. The emotional and cognitive components of empathy. Empathy is commonly divided into two components: emotional empathy and cognitive empathy. Emotional empathy refers to the capacity to directly feel another person's emotions. When someone else is sad, we might feel sadness as well. This form of empathy involves our ability to sense and resonate with the emotional states of others. It's what allows us to connect with someone who is grieving or anxious, as we can feel those emotions in our own bodies. Cognitive empathy, on the other hand, is the ability to understand what someone else is going through, even if we don't necessarily feel the same emotions. It's the ability to step back and recognize someone else's emotional state without becoming overwhelmed by it. Cognitive empathy allows us to empathize with someone even if we haven't experienced the same situation they're going through. For example, we may not have experienced a specific type of loss, but cognitive empathy enables us to understand how that loss might feel to someone else. Both forms of empathy are essential in social interactions. Emotional empathy enables us to bond with others on an emotional level, to offer comfort and support in moments of distress. Cognitive empathy, however, allows us to navigate social situations with greater understanding and perspective. By balancing both emotional and cognitive empathy, we can respond to others in ways that are not only compassionate, but also appropriate to the context. The neuroscience of empathy. Empathy is not just a social or emotional phenomenon. It has deep roots in the structure of the brain. At its core, empathy is a brain function, and understanding how the brain facilitates empathy can give us a deeper appreciation for its power in our social lives. The brain regions most involved in empathy include the anterior insula, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the mirror neuron system. The insula, which we briefly touched upon in Chapter 1, plays a significant role in both emotional and cognitive empathy. It is responsible for processing bodily sensations and emotions. The insula is activated when we observe someone in pain or distress, and it enables us to feel that distress in our own bodies. It's as though the insula allows us to mirror another person's emotional state, which is why it's often referred to as the empathy center of the brain. The anterior cingulate cortex, ACC, also plays a crucial role in empathy, especially in terms of emotional regulation. When we experience empathy for someone else, the ACC helps us process those emotions and decide how to respond. It enables us to modulate our emotional reactions, ensuring that we don't become overwhelmed by the emotions of others. This regulation is important because it helps prevent emotional burnout or the inability to respond in a helpful way. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of empathy at the neurological level is the role of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are specialized brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing the same action. These neurons form the basis for our ability to understand the emotions and intentions of others. When we see someone smiling, our mirror neurons fire as though we are smiling ourselves. When we witness someone in pain, the same neurons fire, allowing us to feel their discomfort. Mirror neurons provide the foundation for both emotional and cognitive empathy, enabling us to resonate with others' experiences and emotions. The impact of empathy on social behavior. Empathy has a profound impact on how we behave in social situations. It guides our actions, informs our decisions, and influences our relationships in subtle but powerful ways. When we empathize with someone, we are more likely to engage in prosocial behaviors, actions that benefit others and promote social harmony. For instance, when we see someone in distress, our empathy often motivates us to offer support or help. This could be as simple as offering a comforting word, providing physical assistance, or offering our time and attention. Empathy drives us to care for others, to act in ways that foster connection and understanding. This is not just a moral or ethical choice. It's an instinctual emotional response that is embedded in the very fabric of our social brains. Empathy also plays a key role in conflict resolution. When we understand the emotions and perspectives of others, we are better equipped to de-escalate tense situations and find common ground. For example, in a disagreement, empathizing with the other person's feelings can help us navigate the conversation with compassion and respect. Rather than reacting defensively or aggressively, empathy enables us to respond in a way that promotes mutual understanding and collaboration. Moreover, empathy is critical to building and maintaining relationships. It's the glue that holds friendships, partnerships, and familial bonds together. By regularly showing empathy, we signal to others that we care about their well-being and are attuned to their emotional needs. In turn, this fosters trust, loyalty, and deeper emotional connection. Empathy allows us to be present with others in meaningful ways, helping us create stronger, more supportive relationships. The limits and challenges of empathy. While empathy is an essential skill for building social connections, it does have its limits. Sometimes, we may find ourselves emotionally overwhelmed by the pain or distress of others. This is known as empathic distress or compassion fatigue. When we feel too deeply for someone else, it can be challenging to maintain the emotional balance necessary to respond effectively. Empathy fatigue is particularly common among caregivers, social workers, and those in professions that require constant emotional engagement with others. Over time, this emotional exhaustion can lead to burnout and even a diminished capacity to empathize with others. It's important, therefore, to develop the ability to regulate our emotional responses and practice self-care. Another challenge is the potential for empathy gaps in certain social contexts. For instance, when we are interacting with people who have different backgrounds, experiences, or perspectives from our own, it can be difficult to fully empathize with their feelings or needs. Cultural differences, for example, can create barriers to empathy, as we may not fully understand or relate to the experiences of others. In such situations, cognitive empathy, understanding others' emotions from an intellectual standpoint, becomes especially valuable. By actively seeking to understand someone's perspective, even if we don't feel the same emotions, we can still engage empathetically. Cultivating and expanding empathy. Empathy, like any other skill, can be cultivated and strengthened over time. Developing empathy requires both practice and mindfulness. It's not something that just happens naturally. It's a conscious effort to tune into the emotions of others and respond with care and understanding. One way to cultivate empathy is through active listening. When we truly listen to others, without judgment or distraction, we create space for them to express their emotions and experiences. This deep listening helps us understand their feelings on a more profound level, which, in turn, strengthens our empathetic responses. Active listening involves not only hearing the words, but also paying attention to the tone of voice, body language, and emotional cues. It's about being present and fully engaged in the conversation. Another way to cultivate empathy is through perspective taking. This involves making a conscious effort to see the world through another person's eyes. It's about trying to understand their thoughts, feelings, and experiences, even if we don't share them. Perspective taking is a powerful tool for expanding our empathy, as it helps us understand people who are different from us, whether culturally, socially, or emotionally. Finally, practicing empathy involves self-reflection and self-awareness. By regularly reflecting on our own emotional responses and recognizing when we might be disconnected from others, we can become more attuned to the needs of those around us. Empathy is not just about understanding others. It's also about understanding ourselves and how our emotions influence our interactions. Empathy is at the core of social intelligence. It allows us to connect with others on a deep emotional level, fostering trust, compassion, and mutual understanding. Empathy enables us to respond appropriately to the emotions of others, promoting positive interactions and relationships. It drives pro-social behaviors, enhances communication, and helps us navigate complex social situations with sensitivity and insight. As we've seen in this chapter, empathy is a multifaceted skill that involves both emotional and cognitive components. It is supported by key brain regions like the insula, anterior cingulate cortex, and mirror neuron system. But while empathy is an innate capacity, it is also a skill that can be developed and refined over time. By cultivating empathy, we can enhance our social intelligence and create stronger, more meaningful connections with the people around us. Chapter 3. The Power of Nonverbal Communication. We all know the importance of words in communication, but research shows that up to 93% of communication is nonverbal. This includes facial expressions, body language, posture, tone of voice, and even subtle changes in our behavior that can convey powerful messages, often without us even being aware of it. Nonverbal communication is an essential element of how we understand and connect with others. It operates on a level far deeper than words, often revealing more about our feelings, intentions, and emotions than we may intend to express verbally. The human brain is highly tuned to pick up on these nonverbal signals. From the tilt of a head to the way a person stands, our brains are constantly processing a flood of nonverbal cues. Understanding these cues is critical for building strong relationships, both personally and professionally. As we delve into the intricacies of nonverbal communication, we will see how vital it is to our ability to navigate social interactions, foster empathy, and develop social intelligence. In this chapter, we'll explore the different types of nonverbal communication and the underlying psychological principles that govern them. By understanding how nonverbal communication works, we can learn to interpret others' emotions and intentions more accurately, while also being mindful of the signals we send to others. The basics of nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication includes a wide array of signals and behaviors. Some of the most common forms of nonverbal communication include 1. Facial expressions. Our faces are incredibly expressive, conveying a wide range of emotions, from joy and surprise to sadness and anger. In fact, facial expressions are one of the most universally understood forms of nonverbal communication, transcending cultural boundaries. Research by psychologist Paul Ekman shows that people around the world are able to recognize basic emotions, such as happiness, anger, fear, sadness, surprise, and disgust, based on facial expressions alone. The key to understanding facial expressions is recognizing the subtle movements of the muscles around the eyes, mouth, and forehead. For example, a genuine smile, also known as a Duchenne smile, involves the activation of both the mouth and the eyes. On the other hand, a forced or fake smile typically only involves the mouth. Being able to recognize these subtle differences can enhance our ability to understand the emotional state of others. 2. Body language and posture. Our bodies convey a wealth of information, often unconsciously. The way we sit, stand, or move can communicate confidence, anxiety, openness, defensiveness, or even aggression. Open body language, such as standing tall with shoulders back and arms uncrossed, signals confidence and approachability. In contrast, closed body language, such as crossed arms, hunched shoulders, or avoiding eye contact, can indicate discomfort, defensiveness, or lack of interest. Posture is also a key component of nonverbal communication. Leaning in during a conversation can signal engagement and interest, while leaning away can suggest boredom or a desire to distance oneself. The way we position our bodies in relation to others can reveal a lot about the level of comfort, power dynamics, and emotional connection we have with those around us. 3. Gestures. We often use hand gestures to emphasize our words or convey meaning. These gestures can be both cultural and universal. For instance, a thumbs up is generally understood as a sign of approval in many cultures, while a wave signifies a greeting or farewell. However, the meanings of some gestures can vary widely between cultures. For example, the gesture of crossing one's fingers to indicate hope or good luck may be understood in one culture but not in another. The frequency, intensity, and type of gestures we use can also reveal our emotional state. Nervousness may cause someone to fidget or make repetitive gestures, while confidence can be shown through deliberate, expansive hand movements. 4. Eye contact. Eye contact is one of the most powerful forms of nonverbal communication. It is often said that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and this is because they convey so much information about how we're feeling. A prolonged gaze can communicate interest, affection, or even dominance, while avoiding eye contact may indicate shyness, dishonesty, or discomfort. Cultural differences also play a significant role in the interpretation of eye contact. In some cultures, maintaining eye contact is seen as a sign of respect and attentiveness, while in others, too much eye contact may be perceived as confrontational or rude. 5. Tone of voice and paralanguage. The way we say something can be just as important as what we say. Tone of voice, pitch, rate of speech, and volume all fall under the category of paralanguage, nonverbal elements of speech that convey emotional nuances. For example, speaking in a high-pitched, fast tone may indicate excitement or anxiety, while a slow, deep tone may suggest calmness or authority. Paralanguage can also convey sarcasm, affection, or irritation. The same sentence spoken with a different tone can convey an entirely different message. Therefore, listening to the tone and rhythm of speech is essential for understanding the true meaning behind a statement. The psychological mechanisms behind nonverbal communication. The power of nonverbal communications lies in its deep connection to the emotional and psychological processes of the brain. Nonverbal cues are processed by several brain areas, including the amygdala, prefrontal cortex, and insula, all of which play important roles in emotional processing, empathy, and decision-making. 1. The amygdala and emotional response. The amygdala is responsible for processing emotions, particularly fear and threat detection. When we observe nonverbal cues, such as a tense posture or a frown, the amygdala quickly assesses whether these signals are positive or negative. It triggers an emotional response based on that assessment, which helps us determine how to react. For instance, if we see someone frowning or avoiding eye contact, the amygdala may interpret that as a sign of disinterest or discomfort, prompting us to adjust our approach accordingly. 2. The prefrontal cortex and social processing. The prefrontal cortex plays a crucial role in evaluating social situations and regulating our responses. When we observe nonverbal cues, the prefrontal cortex helps us make decisions about how to act in the context of the relationship or environment. For example, if someone is displaying closed body language, the prefrontal cortex may prompt us to take a more empathetic or cautious approach, rather than being confrontational or overly assertive. 3. The insula and empathy. The insula is involved in processing bodily sensations and emotions, particularly those related to empathy. When we observe someone's nonverbal cues, such as a sad facial expression or tense body posture, the insula helps us resonate with those emotions and understand what the person is feeling. This connection between the insula and nonverbal communication is central to our ability to empathize with others and respond in a compassionate way. The role of nonverbal communication in building trust and rapport. Nonverbal communication plays a critical role in the development of trust and rapport. Trust is the foundation of all meaningful relationships, and nonverbal cues are often the first indicators of trustworthiness or distrust. A warm smile, a firm handshake, or an open posture can immediately signal trustworthiness, while a lack of eye contact, crossed arms, or fidgeting may suggest discomfort or dishonesty. One of the most important aspects of nonverbal communication is its ability to create a sense of connection. When we mirror another person's body language, posture, or gestures, known as mirroring or matching, we subconsciously signal to them that we are on the same wavelength. This mirroring behavior is a natural way to build rapport and trust. It signals empathy and understanding, which are essential for establishing a positive connection. In addition, nonverbal communication can enhance the effectiveness of verbal communication. When our nonverbal cues align with our words, they create a sense of coherence and authenticity. For example, when someone says they're happy to see you, but their arms are crossed and they avoid eye contact, the message may feel insincere. In contrast, when someone's verbal message is reinforced with open body language, a warm smile, and direct eye contact, the message feels genuine and trustworthy. How to improve your nonverbal communication skills. Becoming more aware of your own nonverbal communication and learning to read others' cues is a powerful way to improve your social intelligence. Here are a few strategies to enhance your nonverbal communication skills. 1. Increase awareness. Start by paying attention to your own body language. Are you conveying openness, warmth, and interest through your posture, facial expressions, and gestures? Are you maintaining appropriate eye contact? Becoming more mindful of your own nonverbal cues allows you to control how others perceive you and helps you engage more authentically in social interactions. 2. Observe others. Pay attention to the nonverbal cues of the people around you. Notice their facial expressions, posture, and tone of voice. Try to interpret their emotions and intentions based on these cues. This will help you become more attuned to others' feelings, making it easier to respond empathetically. 3. Practice active listening. Nonverbal communication is not just about what you express, but also about what you perceive. Active listening involves not only hearing the words someone says, but also paying attention to their tone, body language, and facial expressions. By fully engaging in the conversation, you'll be able to respond more thoughtfully and empathetically. Nonverbal communication is an essential component of social intelligence. It allows us to convey emotions, establish trust, and connect with others on a deep level. By becoming more aware of our own nonverbal cues and learning to read the signals of others, we can enhance our ability to navigate social situations, build stronger relationships, and communicate more effectively. Chapter 4. Emotional intelligence and its role in social interactions. The concept of emotional intelligence, EQ, refers to the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as the ability to recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. Unlike intellectual intelligence, IQ, which primarily focuses on cognitive abilities and problem-solving skills, emotional intelligence emphasizes emotional awareness, empathy, and interpersonal skills. It is a concept that was popularized by psychologist Daniel Goleman in the mid-1990s and has since become recognized as a key factor in personal and professional success. Emotional intelligence is fundamental to effective communication and social interactions because it helps us navigate the complex web of emotions that underlie most human behavior. EQ affects how we perceive ourselves and others, how we react to situations, and how we relate to people on a deeper level. Emotional intelligence is composed of several core components that work together to enhance our social and emotional functioning. The first component of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand our own emotions, as well as their impact on our thoughts and behaviors. When we are self-aware, we can accurately assess how we are feeling and why we feel that way, which allows us to respond more thoughtfully to situations and interactions. Self-awareness also enables us to identify our strengths and weaknesses, helping us make better decisions and take more appropriate actions in both personal and professional settings. The second component is self-regulation, which refers to the ability to control and manage our emotions, especially in stressful or challenging situations. Self-regulation is essential for maintaining emotional balance and composure when faced with conflict, frustration, or other difficult emotions. People with high emotional intelligence are skilled at managing their impulses, remaining calm under pressure, and making thoughtful, deliberate decisions, rather than reacting impulsively to their emotions. The third component is motivation, which involves setting and working toward goals that align with our values and desires. Emotionally intelligent individuals are generally more motivated, resilient, and committed to their objectives, as they have the emotional awareness and self-regulation skills to persevere in the face of obstacles. They are also more likely to maintain a positive attitude and exhibit a strong sense of drive, even during difficult times. The fourth component is empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. Empathy is crucial for building strong relationships, as it allows us to connect with others on an emotional level, offering support and understanding when they need it most. People with high empathy are able to listen attentively, recognize emotional cues, and respond in a compassionate and constructive manner. The fifth and final component of emotional intelligence is social skills, which encompass the ability to communicate effectively, build relationships, and work collaboratively with others. Social skills are the practical application of emotional intelligence, as they involve using our emotional awareness and empathy to navigate social interactions, resolve conflicts, and influence others in a positive way. How emotional intelligence impacts social interactions. Emotional intelligence plays a pivotal role in our social interactions, shaping the way we connect with others, manage conflicts, and build relationships. At its core, EQ allows us to tune into the emotional undercurrents that influence social dynamics, making it easier to understand the motivations, concerns, and needs of others. In many ways, emotional intelligence serves as a kind of social radar, helping us pick up on subtle emotional signals and respond accordingly. For example, when we interact with someone, we don't just listen to their words. We also pay attention to their tone of voice, body language, and facial expressions. These nonverbal cues convey important emotional information that can guide our responses. People with high emotional intelligence are particularly adept at reading these cues, allowing them to navigate social situations with greater ease and confidence. They can recognize when someone is feeling anxious, frustrated, or sad, and adjust their behavior to be more supportive or empathetic. In contrast, individuals with low emotional intelligence may struggle to pick up on these emotional signals, leading to misunderstandings or awkward interactions. One of the key ways that emotional intelligence enhances social interactions is through the development of empathy. Empathy is the ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and truly understand their emotional experience. It goes beyond sympathy, which involves feeling pity or sorrow for someone. Empathy involves connecting with their feelings and sharing in their emotional journey. Empathy is a fundamental aspect of emotional intelligence because it allows us to build rapport, establish trust, and deepen our relationships with others. When we show empathy, we create a sense of emotional safety and understanding, which encourages others to open up and engage with us. This is particularly important in both personal and professional relationships, where trust and communication are essential for success. People who are empathetic tend to be better listeners, more considerate in their responses, and more attuned to the needs of others. They are also more likely to engage in prosocial behaviors, such as offering support or assistance, which strengthens social bonds and fosters cooperation. Emotional intelligence also plays a critical role in conflict resolution. In any social interaction, disagreements and conflicts are inevitable. However, the way we handle these conflicts can make a significant difference in the outcome. People with high emotional intelligence are generally more skilled at managing conflict because they can regulate their emotions and approach the situation with a calm, measured mindset. Rather than reacting impulsively or aggressively, they take the time to understand the perspectives of all parties involved and seek a constructive resolution. They are able to de-escalate tense situations, facilitate productive conversations, and find common ground, even when emotions are running high. In contrast, individuals with low emotional intelligence may become defensive, argumentative, or dismissive during conflicts, which can lead to further tension and damage to the relationship. By understanding and managing our emotions, we are better equipped to navigate disagreements in a way that promotes collaboration and mutual respect. Furthermore, Emotional intelligence is crucial for building and maintaining positive relationships, both personally and professionally. Relationships are built on trust, communication, and mutual respect, and emotional intelligence enhances all of these components. When we are emotionally intelligent, we are more likely to communicate effectively, show empathy, and handle conflicts constructively, all of which contribute to stronger, more resilient relationships. In a professional context, emotional intelligence is particularly valuable as it helps individuals collaborate more effectively, lead teams with greater skill, and navigate complex social dynamics in the workplace. Leaders with high emotional intelligence are more likely to inspire loyalty, motivate their teams, and create a positive work environment. They are also better at managing stress and staying focused under pressure, which allows them to make better decisions and lead by example. Emotional intelligence is also important for networking and building connections, as it enables individuals to connect with others on a personal level and build rapport quickly. The benefits of emotional intelligence. The benefits of emotional intelligence are vast and far-reaching. Research has shown that individuals with high emotional intelligence tend to experience greater success in both their personal and professional lives. They are more likely to have fulfilling relationships, higher levels of job satisfaction, and better overall mental health. This is because emotional intelligence allows us to better manage our emotions, navigate social situations, and build stronger, more supportive relationships. People with high EQ are also more likely to be resilient in the face of adversity, as they are able to regulate their emotional responses to stress and maintain a positive outlook. This resilience is particularly important in today's fast-paced, often unpredictable world, where change and uncertainty are constants. In addition to improving personal and professional relationships, emotional intelligence is also linked to improved physical health. Studies have found that individuals with high emotional intelligence are less likely to experience stress-related health problems, such as high blood pressure or heart disease. This is likely because emotional intelligence helps individuals manage their emotions in a healthy way, reducing the harmful effects of chronic stress. By learning to regulate our emotions, we can lower our stress levels, improve our immune system function, and enhance our overall well-being. Another key benefit of emotional intelligence is its role in enhancing leadership skills. Leaders with high emotional intelligence are better equipped to inspire and motivate their teams, resolve conflicts, and foster a positive work culture. They are also more adept at understanding the emotional needs of their employees and providing the support and guidance necessary for success. Research has shown that emotionally intelligent leaders are more likely to earn the trust and respect of their employees, which leads to higher levels of engagement, productivity, and job satisfaction. Additionally, emotional intelligence helps leaders navigate the complexities of decision-making, as it enables them to consider the emotional impact of their choices on others. How to develop emotional intelligence. While emotional intelligence may come more naturally to some individuals, it is a skill that can be developed and strengthened over time. The process of improving emotional intelligence involves building self-awareness, practicing emotional regulation, and developing empathy and social skills. Here are some strategies to help you enhance your emotional intelligence. 1. Practice self-reflection. Self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence, and it begins with self-reflection. Take time each day to reflect on your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. Ask yourself how you felt during different interactions, what triggered those emotions, and how your reactions affected the outcome of the situation. Journaling can be a helpful tool for self-reflection, as it allows you to process your thoughts and emotions in a constructive way. 2. Regulate your emotions. Emotional regulation is a skill that can be developed through mindfulness and relaxation techniques. Practice techniques such as deep breathing, meditation, or progressive muscle relaxation to help you stay calm and focused in stressful situations. By learning to manage your emotions, you can reduce impulsive reactions and respond more thoughtfully to challenges. 3. Develop empathy. Empathy is a key component of emotional intelligence, and it can be cultivated through active listening and perspective taking. Practice listening attentively to others without interrupting or judging. Try to understand their emotions and experiences and respond in a supportive and compassionate manner. 4. Enhance your social skills. Social skills are the practical application of emotional intelligence. To improve your social skills, focus on building rapport, resolving conflicts constructively, and communicating effectively. Practice being open, approachable, and assertive in your interactions with others. Emotional intelligence is a powerful tool that can transform the way we interact with others, manage our emotions, and navigate social situations. By developing our emotional intelligence, we can build stronger relationships, handle conflicts more effectively, and become more successful in both our personal and professional lives. EQ is not just about being aware of our emotions. It's about understanding the emotions of others, regulating our own emotional responses, and using this awareness to create positive, meaningful connections. As we continue to enhance our emotional intelligence, we unlock the potential to foster deeper relationships, improve our communication, and become more empathetic, compassionate individuals. Chapter 5. Mastering the Art of Communication. Understanding the importance of effective communication. Communication is often described as the backbone of all human relationships, whether personal or professional. It is the primary tool we use to express ourselves, connect with others, and navigate the complex web of emotions, ideas, and intentions that underpin our interactions. While many people may assume that communication is as simple as speaking and listening, it is far more nuanced than that. True communication involves the ability to convey ideas, emotions, and intentions clearly and effectively, while also being able to understand and respond to the messages others are sending. In fact, effective communication is a key determinant of success in nearly every aspect of life, whether it's fostering strong relationships, advancing in a career, or resolving conflicts. Without effective communication, misunderstandings, frustration, and isolation are likely to occur, often resulting in unnecessary conflict or disconnection. By mastering the art of communication, we can build better relationships, collaborate more efficiently, and navigate the challenges of daily life with greater ease. At its core, communication is a two-way process. It involves not only the transmission of information, but also the reception and interpretation of that information. The message being communicated can be verbal or nonverbal, and both forms play a crucial role in shaping the effectiveness of the communication. Verbal communication, which involves the use of words, is often the first thing we think of when we consider communication. However, research has shown that a significant portion of communication is nonverbal. Some estimates suggest that as much as 93% of communication is conveyed through nonverbal cues, including body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, and gestures. This means that even when we are not speaking, we are still sending powerful messages to those around us. It is essential to be aware of both verbal and nonverbal elements of communication, as they work together to convey meaning and influence the impact of our messages. When both are in alignment, communication is more likely to be effective and engaging. But when they are mismatched, confusion and misinterpretation can occur. Effective communication also requires a level of emotional intelligence. Being emotionally aware of ourselves and others allows us to choose our words carefully, respond empathetically, and engage in active listening. This requires us to be fully present during conversations, not just passively receiving information, but also engaging with it. It is important to remember that communication is not a one-way street. It is a dynamic interaction where both parties are involved in the exchange. Active listening is a critical component of effective communication. It goes beyond hearing words to fully understanding and processing the message being delivered. This involves paying attention to the speaker's tone, body language, and emotional state, while also remaining open to their perspective. When we listen actively, we show that we value the other person's thoughts and feelings, which helps to build trust and rapport. Conversely, when we fail to listen attentively or are distracted during conversations, it can cause frustration, alienation, and a breakdown in communication. The elements of communication: words, tone, and body language. The elements of communication are multifaceted, and each component plays a crucial role in how messages are received and understood. Let's begin by looking at verbal communication, which involves the use of words to convey meaning. The choice of words is essential in shaping how a message is perceived. Words carry both denotative, literal meanings, and connotative, emotional or subjective meanings, and understanding the nuances of language is key to ensuring effective communication. For instance, the way we phrase something can influence whether it is interpreted as a positive or negative message. A simple phrase like, "I understand," can carry different meanings depending on the context, tone, and relationship between the people involved. The words we use can either enhance or undermine the message we are trying to communicate, so it is crucial to be mindful of our language choices. Tone of voice is another vital element of communication that can greatly impact the meaning of our words. Tone refers to the emotional quality of our voice, whether it's warm, cold, excited, frustrated, or indifferent. A speaker's tone can convey a wealth of information beyond the actual words being spoken. For example, saying, "I'm fine" in a flat monotone voice may suggest that the speaker is not actually fine and may be upset or frustrated. Conversely, saying "I'm fine" in an upbeat and warm tone conveys sincerity and assurance. Our tone can indicate our emotional state, intentions, and level of engagement in the conversation. When our tone is inconsistent with our words, it can lead to confusion or mistrust. Being mindful of our tone and ensuring that it aligns with the message we want to convey is essential for effective communication. Body language is perhaps the most powerful nonverbal aspect of communication. It encompasses all the physical gestures, movements, and postures that convey information about how we are feeling and what we are thinking. Body language includes facial expressions, eye contact, posture, gestures, and even the distance we maintain from others during conversations. These cues can provide additional context and meaning to the words we speak. For example, maintaining eye contact during a conversation shows attentiveness and respect, while avoiding eye contact may signal discomfort, disinterest, or dishonesty. Crossed arms may suggest defensiveness or discomfort, while an open posture can convey openness and receptivity. The way we position ourselves, our facial expressions, and our physical movements all send messages to the other person, whether consciously or unconsciously. In fact, body language often communicates more about our true feelings than the words we say, which is why it is essential to be aware of the signals we are sending through our physical actions. Active listening and its role in effective communication. One of the most crucial components of effective communication is active listening. Many people believe that communication is primarily about speaking, but the truth is that listening is just as, if not more, important. Active listening involves fully concentrating on the speaker, understanding their message, responding thoughtfully, and remembering what was said. It requires more than just hearing the words. It involves paying attention to the speaker's tone, body language, and emotional state, while also suspending judgment and providing feedback. Active listening is not about preparing our own response while the other person is speaking. It is about being fully present and engaged in the conversation. When we listen actively, we show that we respect the other person's perspective and value their input. This creates a sense of trust and connection, making the other person feel heard and understood. On the other hand, when we fail to listen actively by interrupting, zoning out, or simply waiting for our turn to speak, we risk alienating the other person and creating misunderstandings. Active listening involves several key techniques, including paraphrasing, summarizing, and asking clarifying questions. Paraphrasing involves restating what the speaker has said in our own words, which not only demonstrates that we are listening, but also provides an opportunity for the speaker to confirm or correct our understanding. Summarizing involves providing a brief recap of the main points of the conversation, which helps ensure that we have captured the key elements of the discussion. Asking clarifying questions is another important technique, as it shows that we are engaged and eager to understand the speaker's message more fully. By practicing these techniques, we can enhance our ability to listen actively and improve the overall quality of our communication. Nonverbal communication, the silent language of interaction. As previously mentioned, nonverbal communication plays a significant role in the way we convey messages and interpret others' behavior. Nonverbal cues, such as facial expressions, gestures, posture, and eye contact, often communicate more than words themselves. These cues can provide insight into a person's emotions, intentions, and attitudes, sometimes revealing more about what they are thinking or feeling than their spoken words. In fact, research suggests that up to 93% of communication is nonverbal, with 55% of communication coming from body language, 38% from tone of voice, and only 7% from the actual words used. Given the powerful influence of nonverbal communication, it is essential to pay attention to these cues, both in ourselves and in others. One of the most important aspects of nonverbal communication is body language, which can convey a range of emotions and attitudes. For example, crossed arms may indicate defensiveness or resistance, while an open posture suggests openness and receptivity. Similarly, a warm, genuine smile can convey friendliness and approachability, while a frown or scowl may indicate displeasure or anger. Eye contact is another crucial component of nonverbal communication. Maintaining eye contact shows attentiveness and respect, while avoiding eye contact can suggest discomfort, dishonesty, or disinterest. The way we position our bodies in relation to others also sends nonverbal messages. Standing or sitting with an open posture and leaning slightly forward can communicate interest and engagement, while turning away or crossing our arms may signal disengagement or discomfort. Enhancing your communication skills. To master the art of communication, it is essential to develop both verbal and nonverbal communication skills. Start by focusing on active listening, ensuring that you are fully present during conversations, and giving the speaker your undivided attention. Practice being mindful of your tone and body language, ensuring that they align with the message you are trying to convey. Pay attention to the nonverbal cues of others and learn to read the emotional undertones of a conversation. By improving your communication skills, you can foster stronger relationships, resolve conflicts more effectively, and enhance your overall social intelligence. Effective communication is the foundation of all successful relationships, both personal and professional. By mastering the art of communication, we can connect with others on a deeper level, build trust, and create an environment of mutual respect and understanding. Whether it's through our choice of words, tone of voice, or body language, every interaction we have is an opportunity to strengthen our social bonds and navigate the complexities of human interaction. By honing our communication skills and practicing active listening, we can improve our ability to connect, collaborate, and thrive in an increasingly interconnected world. Chapter 6: The Power of Empathy in Communication. Empathy is often described as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It is a cornerstone of emotional intelligence and it plays a vital role in communication. In fact, empathy is one of the key elements that distinguishes truly effective communicators from those who struggle to form meaningful connections. Without empathy, communication can become transactional, superficial, and even alienating. But when empathy is present, it creates a bridge between people, allowing for a deeper understanding and connection. Empathy helps us see beyond our own perspectives, inviting us to step into the shoes of others and perceive the world through their eyes. It allows us to listen not only to what is being said, but also to the underlying emotions, needs, and desires that might not be immediately visible. Empathy enhances our social intelligence by helping us respond in ways that are sensitive to the feelings of others, fostering mutual respect and trust. This chapter will delve deeper into the nature of empathy, its impact on communication, and practical ways to cultivate this essential skill. The first step in understanding empathy is recognizing that it goes beyond mere sympathy. While sympathy involves feeling pity or sorrow for someone else's misfortune, empathy requires a deeper level of connection. It's not just about feeling sorry for someone. It's about experiencing their emotions as if they were your own. This does not mean that we lose our own emotional perspective or become overwhelmed by the other person's feelings, but rather that we open ourselves up to understanding and sharing in their emotional experience. This deeper emotional resonance creates a powerful bond between people and strengthens relationships. In contrast, a lack of empathy can lead to misunderstandings, frustration, and emotional distance. Empathy requires us to listen attentively with both our minds and hearts, and to engage with the other person's emotions and experiences in a genuine and non-judgmental way. This allows us to respond thoughtfully, offering support, comfort, or validation as needed. It also opens the door to more effective problem solving, as we can better understand the underlying motivations and concerns of others. Empathy is not just about understanding others on an intellectual level. It also involves connecting with them emotionally. This emotional connection allows us to engage in more compassionate and authentic communication. For example, when someone is going through a difficult time, simply offering words of comfort can sometimes feel empty if they are not backed by a genuine understanding of what the person is feeling. On the other hand, when we empathize with the person's emotions, we are able to offer words and actions that are grounded in compassion, and we are more likely to offer support that resonates with their needs. Empathy allows us to meet others where they are emotionally, making it easier to build rapport and foster trust. It is through empathy that we are able to communicate in a way that feels human rather than transactional, and to connect on a deeper level with those around us. The two types of empathy: cognitive and emotional. There are two primary types of empathy: cognitive empathy and emotional empathy. Each type plays a distinct role in communication, and both are important for building strong, meaningful relationships. Understanding the differences between cognitive and emotional empathy can help us develop a more nuanced approach to our interactions with others. Cognitive empathy is the ability to understand another person's perspective or point of view. It involves recognizing and grasping the thoughts, beliefs, and intentions of others. In other words, cognitive empathy allows us to put ourselves in someone else's shoes intellectually, understanding their reasoning and worldview. This type of empathy is particularly useful in situations that require problem solving, conflict resolution, or negotiation. For example, when a colleague presents a differing opinion, cognitive empathy enables us to understand their argument and the reasons behind it, even if we don't agree. This understanding allows us to engage in a more productive and respectful discussion, rather than resorting to defensiveness or aggression. Cognitive empathy is also crucial in professional environments, where it helps us work collaboratively with diverse teams, communicate effectively with clients, and navigate the complexities of social dynamics. It allows us to engage with others' ideas and perspectives without judgment, making it easier to find common ground and build consensus. On the other hand, emotional empathy involves feeling what another person is feeling. It is the ability to share in the emotional experience of others, such as feeling their joy, sadness, frustration, or fear. Emotional empathy allows us to connect with others on a deep, visceral level, enabling us to respond with genuine compassion and care. This type of empathy is particularly important in personal relationships, as it fosters emotional intimacy and understanding. For example, when a friend is grieving the loss of a loved one, emotional empathy allows us to feel their pain and offer support that comes from a place of shared emotion. Emotional empathy also plays a crucial role in comforting others during times of distress, as it enables us to offer validation and emotional support that meets the person's needs. However, emotional empathy can also be challenging at times, as it requires us to confront and feel the emotions of others, which can be overwhelming or difficult. Balancing emotional empathy with cognitive empathy, understanding someone's feelings while also maintaining our own emotional boundaries, is key to maintaining healthy relationships and preventing emotional burnout. The role of empathy in building trust and connection. Empathy is a fundamental driver of trust and connection in relationships. When we demonstrate empathy, we signal to others that we are attuned to their feelings and needs, and that we care about their well-being. This creates an environment of psychological safety, where people feel comfortable expressing themselves without fear of judgment or rejection. Trust is the foundation of all strong relationships, and empathy is one of the key ingredients in building and maintaining that trust. When people feel understood and valued, they are more likely to open up, be honest, and engage in meaningful communication. Conversely, when empathy is lacking, communication can become strained, leading to misunderstandings, frustration, and disconnection. Empathy fosters a sense of belonging and validation. When someone feels that their emotions are recognized and understood, they are more likely to feel connected to the other person and to trust them. This is especially important in personal relationships, where emotional intimacy is a key factor in building lasting bonds. Empathy helps create a space where both parties can be vulnerable, share their thoughts and feelings, and engage in authentic communication. In professional settings, empathy can also enhance collaboration and teamwork. When colleagues empathize with one another, they are more likely to support each other, work together to solve problems, and create a positive work environment. This sense of connection and mutual understanding can lead to greater productivity, creativity, and job satisfaction. Empathy also plays a crucial role in conflict resolution. When we are able to empathize with the emotions and perspectives of others, we are better equipped to handle disagreements and find solutions that satisfy everyone involved. Instead of focusing on winning or being right, empathy encourages us to listen with an open mind and seek understanding. It helps us approach conflicts with a mindset of collaboration rather than confrontation, which can lead to more positive outcomes. Empathy enables us to recognize the underlying emotional needs that may be driving a conflict, allowing us to address these needs in a compassionate and constructive manner. How to cultivate empathy in everyday interactions. While some people may have a natural inclination toward empathy, it is a skill that can be cultivated with practice. Developing greater empathy requires us to be intentional about how we engage with others and to prioritize understanding their feelings and perspectives. The following are several practical strategies for cultivating empathy in everyday interactions. 1. Practice active listening. One of the most effective ways to demonstrate empathy is by listening actively. Active listening involves fully engaging with the speaker, paying attention to their words, tone, and body language. It also requires us to suspend judgment and refrain from interrupting or offering unsolicited advice. By listening attentively, we show that we value the other person's thoughts and feelings which fosters a sense of connection and trust. 2. Put yourself in others' shoes. Empathy requires us to step outside of our own perspective and consider the experiences and emotions of others. When engaging with someone, try to imagine what it would be like to walk in their shoes. What might they be feeling, thinking, or experiencing? This exercise helps us develop a deeper understanding of their point of view and allows us to respond with greater compassion. 3. Validate others' emotions. Sometimes, the most powerful way to demonstrate empathy is by simply acknowledging and validating another person's emotions. For example, if a friend is upset, saying, "I can see that you're really frustrated," can show that you recognize and respect their feelings. Validation helps people feel heard and understood, which can go a long way in strengthening relationships. 4. Be present and attentive. Empathy requires us to be present in the moment and to give our full attention to the person we are communicating with. Put away distractions, such as phones or other devices, and focus on the conversation at hand. Being present demonstrates that you value the other person and are committed to understanding their feelings. 5. Express compassion and support. Finally, empathy involves not just understanding, but also responding with compassion. Offer words of encouragement, comfort, or support that are appropriate to the situation. Whether it's offering a listening ear, a kind word, or a helping hand, expressing compassion helps to strengthen the bond between you and the other person. The challenges of empathy and how to overcome them. While empathy is an essential skill, it is not always easy to practice. There are several challenges that can make it difficult to empathize with others, including emotional exhaustion, biases, and cultural differences. For example, when we are emotionally drained or overwhelmed, it can be hard to muster the energy to empathize with others. In such cases, it's important to practice self-care and set boundaries to protect our emotional well-being. Additionally, we may have unconscious biases or assumptions that prevent us from truly understanding others, especially those who come from different backgrounds or perspectives. Overcoming these biases requires us to be open-minded, curious, and willing to challenge our own assumptions. By doing so, we can cultivate a deeper sense of empathy and connect with others on a more meaningful level. Empathy is the heart of effective communication and social intelligence. It allows us to build trust, foster understanding, and create deep, meaningful connections with others. Whether in personal relationships or professional settings, empathy is the key to navigating the complexities of human interaction with compassion and care. By practicing active listening, putting ourselves in others' shoes, and responding with validation and support, we can cultivate empathy and enhance our ability to communicate effectively. Chapter 7. Mastering Emotional Regulation in Interpersonal Dynamics. The pillar of emotional self-awareness. Emotional regulation begins with emotional self-awareness. Before we can manage what we feel, we must be able to identify and understand our emotions with clarity and honesty. This awareness is not simply about labeling emotions with names like anger, sadness, joy, or anxiety. It is about tracing them to their roots, understanding their triggers, and becoming conscious of the narratives we attach to them. When we feel slighted in a conversation, are we truly angry at the other person's words? Or are we reacting to an old wound or a perceived threat to our identity? When we find ourselves suddenly shutting down emotionally, is it because we are disinterested in the topic or because we feel emotionally unsafe? Developing this depth of emotional self-awareness requires consistent reflection and an openness to examining our internal landscape without defensiveness. In social interactions, especially those that are high stakes or emotionally charged, this self-awareness becomes the compass by which we navigate. Without it, we are more likely to act on impulse, misread others' intentions, and respond in ways that damage relationships rather than heal or enhance them. Emotional awareness empowers us to pause, to assess, and to choose our responses with intentionality, rather than being swept away by reactive emotions. Emotional regulation as an intentional practice. Contrary to popular belief, emotional regulation is not about suppressing our emotions or pretending that they don't exist. Rather, it is the process of managing our emotional responses so that they are appropriate to the context and aligned with our goals. Regulation involves both understanding and channeling our emotions, choosing how and when to express them, and finding ways to process and release them that are healthy and constructive. It may mean taking a deep breath before speaking in a moment of frustration, or choosing to delay a response when emotionally triggered. It may involve expressing disappointment without blame, or asserting a boundary with calm confidence rather than passive aggression. Effective emotional regulation also includes strategies like reframing negative thoughts, engaging in physical movement to release tension, and practicing mindfulness to ground ourselves in the present. As we engage in this practice regularly, it becomes more intuitive. Our emotional reactions no longer control us. Instead, we learn to work with our emotions as signals, rather than as obstacles. This intentionality transforms how we relate to others, helping us become more trustworthy, consistent, and resilient partners in communication. The role of emotional regulation in de-escalating conflict. When conflict arises, and inevitably it will in any meaningful relationship, emotional regulation becomes a critical skill. In emotionally charged situations, we are often tempted to defend ourselves, lash out, shut down, or retreat. These reactions are natural, rooted in the body's stress response system. However, unregulated emotional reactions often escalate conflict rather than resolve it. Regulating our emotions allows us to stay calm under pressure, to think clearly even when tension is high, and to respond rather than react. Imagine a heated disagreement with a friend. If one person raises their voice, the natural impulse might be to match their volume or shut down in retreat. But with regulation, we can pause, breathe, and choose a different path, perhaps lowering our tone, naming the emotion in the room, or expressing our desire to find common ground. This doesn't mean suppressing our frustration or invalidating our own needs. Rather, it means being intentional about how we express those feelings. When one person in a conflict maintains emotional regulation, it can help soothe the tension and invite the other person into a calmer, more productive dialogue. This de-escalation can preserve relationships, repair ruptures, and build mutual respect over time. Building tolerance for emotional discomfort. One of the hidden aspects of emotional regulation is the development of emotional tolerance, the capacity to sit with uncomfortable feelings without needing to immediately fix, escape, or avoid them. In the realm of social intelligence, this is crucial. Interpersonal situations often evoke discomfort, the awkwardness of confrontation, the vulnerability of asking for what we need, the uncertainty of being misunderstood, or the sadness of witnessing someone else's pain. If we are unable to tolerate these emotions, we may avoid important conversations, offer superficial responses, or detach emotionally. Emotional tolerance allows us to stay present with discomfort long enough to move through it rather than around it. For example, if a team member criticizes our work in a meeting, the initial wave of embarrassment or defensiveness may be strong. But with emotional tolerance, we can sit with that discomfort, remind ourselves that it is temporary, and respond in a way that keeps the relationship intact, perhaps by thanking them for the feedback and expressing our willingness to improve. Over time, as we build this tolerance, we become less afraid of difficult emotions and more adept at navigating them with grace. This expands our emotional resilience and makes us more grounded, mature communicators. Regulating emotions to enhance empathic presence. Regulating our emotions is not only about managing our own inner experience, It also has a profound impact on how present and attuned we can be to others. When our internal emotional world is chaotic or overwhelming, it's difficult to fully engage with another person's reality. Emotional regulation creates internal space for listening, for curiosity, and for empathy. For example, if we enter a conversation anxious and self-absorbed, we may miss subtle cues that indicate the other person is upset or struggling. We may interpret their responses through the lens of our own stress rather than hearing them accurately. But when we are calm, regulated, and grounded, we can be fully present. We can attune ourselves to the rhythms of another person's speech, the shifts in their tone, the emotions behind their words. This presence is a gift. It tells the other person, "I see you. I'm here with you. I care." In this way, regulation becomes the bedrock of empathy and connection. Without it, we may react from projection or defensiveness. With it, we respond from understanding and care, navigating power dynamics through emotional control. Emotional regulation becomes even more important in situations involving power dynamics, whether in leadership, mentoring, parenting, or negotiations. When we hold a position of authority, our emotional responses carry greater weight. A manager who snaps at an employee in frustration can shatter morale for days. A parent who explodes in anger may cause deep emotional wounds. Conversely, when leaders regulate their emotions, they model maturity and self-control, creating a culture of respect and psychological safety. Emotional regulation in these contexts includes the capacity to remain steady in the face of provocation, to offer feedback without shaming, and to lead with calm clarity during crises. It also means managing one's own insecurities, ego, and fears so they don't bleed into communication. In negotiations, regulation helps maintain strategic thinking and emotional detachment. It enables us to advocate for our needs without aggression and to listen actively even when the stakes are high. Navigating power responsibly requires us to be deeply aware of our emotional impact and to regulate in a way that fosters equity, dignity, and trust. Training the brain for emotional regulation. The good news is that emotional regulation is a trainable skill. The brain's neuroplasticity means that, with consistent practice, we can rewire our responses and build new emotional habits. Techniques such as mindfulness meditation, journaling, deep breathing, and body-based awareness practices are powerful tools for cultivating regulation. Mindfulness, for example, trains us to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, which weakens their grip on us. Journaling allows us to process emotions through reflection and insight. Deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, calming the body's stress response and restoring a sense of safety. Over time, these practices strengthen the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control, decision-making, and emotional modulation, and quiet the amygdala, which governs fear and reactivity. With regular practice, we become less reactive, more centered, and more capable of maintaining emotional equilibrium in the face of stress. This neurological resilience directly enhances our social intelligence, allowing us to stay present, composed, and effective in our interactions. Real-world applications of emotional regulation. Let's consider how these principles of emotional regulation apply in everyday scenarios. In romantic relationships, moments of misunderstanding can easily spiral into conflict if both partners are emotionally reactive. But if even one person can pause, take a breath, and express their feelings calmly and vulnerably, the dynamic often shifts dramatically. "I feel hurt when you cancel plans without letting me know" is vastly more effective than "you never respect my time." In the workplace, a leader who receives negative feedback might feel defensive, but if they can regulate that response, they might say, "I appreciate you being honest. I'd like to understand more." In family settings, a parent confronted with a teenager's anger might initially feel triggered, but with regulation, they can respond with curiosity. It seems like something's really bothering you. Want to talk about it? These everyday examples illustrate that regulation doesn't remove emotion. It allows emotion to be expressed in ways that invite connection, clarity, and healing. In every context, our ability to manage our internal emotional state determines the quality of our communication and the strength of our relationships. The long-term rewards of emotional mastery. Mastering emotional regulation offers rewards that extend far beyond any single conversation. It reshapes the way we experience ourselves and others. With regulation, we become less beholden to emotional turbulence and more anchored in our values. We respond to life with greater composure, wisdom, and compassion. Relationships become less reactive and more responsive, less fraught with drama, and more rooted in mutual understanding. We begin to trust ourselves more deeply, knowing that even when emotions arise, we can handle them with integrity and care. This inner trust radiates outward, inviting others to feel safe, seen, and respected in our presence. Over time, emotional regulation becomes a quiet strength, a presence that influences and elevates every interaction we have. Chapter 8: Decoding the Unspoken, Mastering Nonverbal Communication. The language beneath words. Understanding body language as emotional context. In every conversation, there exists an invisible dialogue running beneath the words, one that often communicates more honestly, instinctively, and powerfully than anything that is spoken aloud. Body language, the core of nonverbal communication, is the subtle symphony of movement, expression, posture, and orientation that frames and colors our interactions. The way a person holds their shoulders during a discussion can speak volumes about their confidence or anxiety. A glance can express warmth or contempt, while a slight pullback of the head may signal doubt, disapproval, or discomfort, even if the accompanying words suggest agreement. The fascinating thing about body language is that it operates both involuntarily and habitually, revealing our subconscious emotional states to attentive observers. People often try to manage their spoken words, but far fewer succeed in fully controlling their nonverbal signals. This makes body language a powerful tool for anyone seeking to deepen their social intelligence. However, the key lies not in memorizing mechanical interpretations, such as assuming a person is lying because they look up to the left, but in learning to observe holistically. True mastery of body language means contextualizing gestures within the broader emotional environment of the conversation and understanding that each person expresses themselves differently. A friend's habit of biting their lip when nervous is not the same as another person's tendency to fidget when bored. Instead of imposing pre-constructed meanings onto these behaviors, socially intelligent individuals begin by noticing patterns and asking inward questions. Is this normal for this person? Has something changed in their demeanor? Are their words aligned with what their body is saying? In doing so, we shift from trying to read people like textbooks to engaging them as complex living narratives. When we pay close attention to facial expressions, posture shifts, breathing patterns, and proximity, we gain access to the subtle emotional truths that might never be articulated in speech, but which are essential to mutual understanding, connection, and trust. The art of attunement, mirroring, empathy, and presence in nonverbal exchange. While recognizing others' body language is important, the deeper art of nonverbal communication lies in attunement, the ability to emotionally and physically sync with others in a way that fosters connection and resonance. This kind of attunement is not merely about copying someone's posture or parroting their tone. It involves tapping into the emotional current of a conversation, allowing one's body, face, and energy to reflect an authentic sense of presence. When we are attuned to someone, we subtly mirror their expressions, match their tone, and adapt our gestures to align with theirs. This mirroring creates a neurological feedback loop called limbic resonance, in which both parties begin to feel more emotionally safe, understood, and connected. For example, when someone is grieving and speaks in a soft, trembling voice, attunement means lowering your own voice, softening your expression, and creating a space that honors their pain without needing to fill the silence with solutions. In tense negotiations, attunement may mean adopting a neutral but engaged body posture, leaning in slightly, nodding slowly, holding eye contact without staring, signaling to the other person that you're fully present and open to dialogue. It's important to note that effective attunement requires genuine empathy, not manipulation. Attempts to use body language techniques to influence others without emotional sincerity are quickly perceived as inauthentic and even threatening. People have a keen instinct for incongruence, and nothing undermines trust faster than when someone's words and demeanor feel out of sync. On the other hand, when attunement is authentic, it creates an almost magnetic effect. The person we're with feels seen, heard, and valued, not just for what they're saying, but for how they're feeling. And we, in turn, begin to sense their emotions in real time, responding with a natural flow that doesn't require scripting or strategizing. This kind of embodied empathy, where our own body becomes a sensitive instrument for relational tuning, forms the core of socially intelligent presence. It allows conversations to unfold more organically and creates a felt sense of connection that words alone cannot achieve. Navigating cultural, personal, and contextual differences in nonverbal cues. Perhaps the most nuanced element of mastering nonverbal communication is learning how to navigate the immense variability in how different people, cultures, and social contexts express and interpret nonverbal cues. The risk of assuming that all gestures and expressions carry universal meaning is a significant pitfall for those trying to develop social intelligence. In some cultures, direct eye contact is a sign of confidence and respect, while in others, it can be perceived as rude or confrontational. A smile may indicate happiness in one setting, but be a polite mask in another. Even within a single culture, individuals differ widely in how they express themselves nonverbally, shaped by their upbringing, personality, emotional conditioning, and neurological wiring. For instance, a neurodivergent person may avoid eye contact not out of disrespect, but because it's overstimulating or uncomfortable. Someone with a history of trauma may flinch or shut down when a voice is raised, even if the speaker's intent is passionate rather than hostile. Developing fluency in nonverbal communication then requires humility and curiosity. It calls for suspending snap judgments and asking instead, what might this signal mean in the context of this person's experience? To interpret body language accurately, we must learn to read patterns over time rather than isolating single gestures. If someone always speaks with their arms crossed, that may simply be their default posture, not a sign of defensiveness. But if they suddenly cross their arms in the middle of a conversation where emotions are running high, that shift could indicate a change in emotional state. Likewise, cultural fluency becomes essential in globalized social and professional environments. The gestures, facial expressions, and physical distance we consider normal may carry very different connotations for someone from another cultural background. To avoid miscommunication, socially intelligent individuals engage in observation and ask clarifying questions when unsure. They learn to attune not only to individuals, but to cultural contexts, recognizing that sensitivity to difference is not a limitation. It's a powerful strength. By expanding our awareness of how nonverbal cues differ across human experience, we reduce assumptions, deepen empathy, and create a more inclusive, respectful way of relating. Ultimately, this sensitivity enhances our capacity for true connection, enabling us to respond with grace, appropriateness, and authenticity, regardless of who we are engaging with. Chapter 9: Emotional Currents: Recognizing managing, and responding to others' emotions. To develop genuine social intelligence, we must go beyond simply observing behavior or deciphering words. We must cultivate the ability to perceive emotional undercurrents, those subtle but powerful feelings that shape and steer conversations, whether acknowledged or not. Every person carries an emotional tone into an interaction, a kind of atmospheric presence that isn't always overt, but profoundly affects the dynamic. A person might be smiling while harboring deep resentment. Another might speak softly, yet radiate frustration through their energy. Emotional awareness, therefore, requires both sensitivity and intention. It means actively tuning into others, not just for what they say or show, but for what they feel, especially when those emotions are hidden beneath social niceties, politeness, or distraction. Recognizing emotional states involves attuning to micro-expressions, shifts in voice, breathing patterns, pace of speech, and other subtle cues that most overlook. But just as crucial is the discipline of staying emotionally centered within oneself, so that we don't mistake our own emotional noise for that of others. When we are too reactive or overly self-focused, our perception of others becomes clouded. Instead, developing true emotional awareness begins with a quiet internal posture, one that listens as much with the heart as with the ears. Over time, this posture trains us to spot when a conversation feels off, when someone's words don't align with their emotional state, or when there's something left unsaid that matters. This awareness is not about prying or assuming, but about creating space. When people feel seen emotionally without being judged or interrogated, they often open up more honestly and vulnerably. Emotional awareness becomes a gift, an invitation for truth to emerge, for deeper connection to form. In this way, emotional sensitivity is not weakness, it is relational strength. It allows us to engage with others not merely on the surface of behavior, but at the deeper level of their emotional reality, where trust, meaning, and real change reside. Emotional regulation, responding. Instead of reacting in social situations. Once we've developed a sense of others' emotional currents, the next essential skill is emotional regulation, the ability to manage our own internal emotional responses so we can respond with clarity, empathy, and composure. In emotionally charged moments, whether in conflict, high-stakes conversations, or moments of vulnerability, it's easy to be swept up by our own feelings. Our brain's limbic system, which governs our fight, flight, or freeze responses, often reacts before our rational mind can intervene. This is why people say things they regret, raise their voice, withdraw, or become defensive, not because they intend to, but because they haven't trained themselves to pause, process, and choose a better response. Emotional regulation is that pause. It's the brief but powerful moment when we take a breath, notice what's rising within us, and make the conscious choice to respond wisely rather than impulsively. This skill is not innate. It's built over time through self-awareness, reflection, and intentional practice. It begins with recognizing our own emotional triggers. What comments or tones make us feel invalidated, angry, dismissed, or afraid? Once we know our triggers, we can anticipate them and build strategies to stay calm when they appear. This might include grounding exercises, such as focusing on your breath, mentally labeling your emotion, or reminding yourself of the larger goal of the conversation. The most socially intelligent people are not those who never feel strong emotions, but those who can stay present and composed while experiencing them. They know how to be angry without being cruel, to feel hurt without shutting down, and to be passionate without overpowering others. This kind of regulated emotional presence makes us not only more trustworthy, but also more influential, because people feel safer around us. They sense that we won't explode, collapse, or run away when things get hard. In professional settings, this composure can elevate your leadership. In personal relationships, it can transform conflict into connection. And in daily life, it allows you to face difficult people and situations with courage and grace. Emotional regulation, in essence, is a form of self-leadership. It's how we bring the best of ourselves into our interactions, even when challenged. Emotional responsiveness. Meeting others where they are with empathic precision. Understanding and managing emotions is not enough unless we translate that insight into action, into how we respond to others in a way that is attuned, compassionate, and constructive. Emotional responsiveness is the art of meeting people where they are emotionally, not where we wish they were. It means listening with more than just our ears and responding with more than just solutions. When someone shares frustration, they often don't need advice. They need acknowledgement. When someone expresses excitement, they want us to share in their joy, not dampen it with skepticism. Emotional responsiveness is about giving people what they need emotionally in that moment, which might differ from what we think they need logically. This kind of precision requires us to set aside our own agenda long enough to fully inhabit the emotional world of the other person, even briefly. It also means adapting our tone, timing, and content to match the emotional state of the conversation. If someone is deeply anxious, offering blunt facts may feel cold or dismissive. A softer, more validating approach can create the safety needed for their mind to open. Conversely, if someone is spiraling into overwhelm, an overly emotional response from us might escalate the situation further. Instead, providing calm, grounded energy can help anchor them. Emotional responsiveness is not about being fake or overly accommodating. It's about being strategically human. It's about choosing our responses in a way that honors both the truth of the other person and the integrity of the interaction. It often involves emotional labor, managing our own feelings to create a better emotional experience for someone else. While this effort can be taxing, it's also deeply rewarding. When someone feels truly met, when their emotional reality is not only seen but skillfully responded to, they feel loved, respected, and empowered. Relationships deepen, conflict de-escalates, trust grows. In professional environments, emotional responsiveness can make the difference between being a manager and being a leader, between having authority and having influence. It creates a culture of mutual respect where people feel safe bringing their full selves to the table. And in personal life, it strengthens every bond we care about. Practicing emotional responsiveness is an ongoing journey, but every time we succeed, we bring more empathy, kindness, and effectiveness into the world. And that, in the end, is what social intelligence is truly about. Not just understanding others, but uplifting them. Chapter 10. Navigating difficult conversations, turning tension into trust. Understanding the landscape of difficult conversations. Difficult conversations are not inherently negative. They are simply interactions charged with emotion, uncertainty, and stakes that matter. These can range from addressing a breach of trust with a friend, giving hard feedback at work, confronting harmful behavior in a family member, or even saying no to something you care about. What makes these conversations difficult is not the topic itself, but the emotional terrain around it. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of losing the relationship, or simply not having the words to articulate complex feelings. Most people approach these moments with a fight or flight mindset, either charging in too aggressively or avoiding them entirely. Neither approach works well. Avoidance breeds resentment and silence corrodes connection, while aggression often invites defensiveness and escalates tension. Navigating such conversations effectively requires first acknowledging their complexity. It means preparing ourselves emotionally and mentally before stepping into them, recognizing that success is not just about being right, but about preserving dignity, ours and theirs. To do this, we must be intentional. What outcome do we really want? What is the deeper need we're trying to express? Clarity on these questions grounds us. It shifts the focus from simply unloading our truth to fostering mutual understanding. In truth, difficult conversations are less about winning and more about listening well, speaking clearly, and holding space for both perspectives to breathe. When we come in with curiosity rather than control, with empathy instead of judgment, the conversation changes shape, tension gives way to exploration, and opposition becomes an opportunity to collaborate. The best conversations, yes, even the hard ones, become transformative not because they avoid discomfort, but because they navigate it with care, courage, and conscious presence. The power of framing and emotional tone. What we say matters, but how we say it often matters more. In difficult conversations, tone is everything. An accusatory tone can turn a well-meaning observation into an attack, while a gentle, sincere tone can make even challenging truths easier to receive. Framing is the act of consciously shaping how we present what we need to say, so it aligns with our intention and respects the emotional state of the other person. This doesn't mean being manipulative or inauthentic. Rather, it means owning our perspective without invalidating theirs. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," we might say, "I feel unheard when we talk, and I'd love for us to understand each other better." This reframes the issue from blame to connection. It opens a door instead of building a wall. Thoughtful framing also requires us to examine our emotional tone. What energy are we bringing into the conversation? Are we tense, irritated, sarcastic, or guarded? Or are we centered, calm, and grounded? Our tone communicates more than our words ever could. People respond to tone intuitively, often reacting to how we feel rather than what we say. If we approach with a sincere desire to understand and be understood, it creates psychological safety, a state where both people feel emotionally secure enough to be real. This safety is what allows truth to surface without defensiveness. When we begin a tough conversation with warmth, curiosity, and humility, we create a container strong enough to hold vulnerability. And within that container, people are far more willing to meet us halfway. They don't feel cornered, they feel seen. So before any difficult conversation, check your tone and reframe your message. Ask yourself, is my language clear but kind? Am I expressing feelings without assigning blame? Am I inviting dialogue or demanding compliance? These questions don't dilute the truth. They refine it. They ensure that our message lands not as an attack, but as an offering, honest, courageous, and rooted in care. Listening as leadership, creating space for resolution. Most people think of difficult conversations as moments where we must speak bravely, but often our real power lies in listening. Listening is not passive. It's one of the most active, courageous things we can do in a conversation filled with tension. It requires us to quiet the mental noise of rebuttals, defenses, and assumptions long enough to actually receive the other person's experience. This kind of listening is not about waiting for our turn to speak. It's about entering their emotional world with humility and openness. It's about saying, through our presence as much as our words, "You matter. Your view matters. I'm here, and I'm listening." When someone feels truly heard, they no longer need to shout. Their defenses lower. Their pain softens, and a new possibility emerges. Mutual understanding. But listening at this level doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It means validating the emotion, even if we challenge the conclusion. It means reflecting back what we hear, asking clarifying questions, and staying emotionally regulated when their words sting or surprise us. True listening is leadership because it leads the conversation away from conflict and toward connection. It models respect, fosters empathy, and creates the emotional spaciousness needed for resolution. And when it's our turn to speak, we do so with greater wisdom, because we've taken the time to understand before we respond. Listening also helps us adjust our message in real time. Sometimes what we thought was the issue is not what's really hurting them. Or we may discover that our intent was misunderstood in ways we couldn't have anticipated. These insights only come when we allow others the dignity of being fully heard. In the end, difficult conversations succeed not because we avoid discomfort, but because we face it together. With words, yes, but even more so with listening hearts and steady presence. When both people feel seen and respected, even the hardest truths can land softly. Trust isn't broken by truth. It's broken by the way we handle truth without care. Listening, then, becomes our most potent instrument of repair. Chapter 11. The Art of Influence, Shaping Outcomes with Subtlety and Integrity. Influence is not about manipulation, coercion, or dominating others. True influence is about creating environments where people feel seen, heard, and understood, enabling them to make choices aligned with their best interests, and often with your own. This may seem paradoxical, but the essence of influence lies in alignment, not force. The art of influencing others begins with understanding their needs, desires, fears, and motivations. It's about recognizing the internal dialogues that guide their decisions and offering them pathways that resonate with their values and goals. In every interaction, there are invisible forces at play: assumptions, biases, social norms, and emotional triggers that shape how people perceive you and the situation at hand. By becoming aware of these forces, you can gently steer conversations toward outcomes that benefit both parties. Unlike manipulation, which seeks to gain something at another's expense, ethical influence seeks mutual benefit. It is an exchange, not a one-sided transaction. To influence effectively, you must first understand the psychology of the people you engage with. How do they perceive their world? What drives them? What makes them feel respected or disrespected? Understanding these nuances creates a foundation for influencing with integrity. Influence is about suggestion, not imposition, offering ideas, insights, and choices that lead the other person to think and act in a way that is congruent with their needs, even if those needs are still emerging in their minds. This is where subtlety comes into play. Influence rarely works through overt, aggressive tactics. Instead, it operates in the quiet spaces of conversation, the pauses between words, the unspoken suggestions embedded in language, and the gestures that support or contradict verbal communication. The most skilled influencers don't need to command or demand. They invite others to discover for themselves the value of an idea, a solution, or a perspective. This method is both art and science, requiring both emotional intelligence and cognitive insight. It requires patience, as well as the ability to lead without pushing. When we influence in this way, we give the other person the autonomy to feel they made the decision themselves, even if we guided them to that point. This is the paradox of effective influence. It is the most powerful when it feels the least forceful. At the core of influence lies trust. Without trust, influence is nothing more than manipulation. People will not follow someone they do not trust. They will not be persuaded by someone they do not believe has their best interests at heart. Therefore, the first and most important tool in the art of influence is authenticity. Authenticity is not simply being honest. It is being consistent in our words, actions, and intentions. It means showing up in the world with integrity, with a sense of wholeness, and without pretense. When others sense that we are authentic, they are more likely to open themselves to our influence. This authenticity must be visible in every interaction, whether through the transparency of our actions, the sincerity of our words, or the alignment of our values. When we are congruent, when what we think, say, and do are aligned, we send a powerful signal to others that they can trust us. This kind of trust building is slow and steady, built not through grand gestures, but through consistent, everyday actions. The more others can see that we are true to our values, the more they will feel secure in our presence. They will know that we are not motivated by hidden agendas, but by a genuine desire to serve, help, and connect. Authenticity, however, is not just about being real in a way that makes us comfortable. It also requires us to show vulnerability and admit mistakes. When we acknowledge our shortcomings and express genuine remorse for past missteps, we demonstrate to others that we are humble and self-aware. This humility deepens trust because it creates a shared sense of humanity. When others see that we are not perfect but are committed to doing better, they feel more connected to us and more willing to be influenced by us. Authenticity also means recognizing that influence is a shared process, not a one-way street. We influence others not by demanding obedience, but by engaging in meaningful, reciprocal relationships. This is how influence becomes a tool for growth, for both the influencer and the influenced. When we build influence through authenticity, we create a foundation of trust that enables us to navigate difficult situations, negotiate complex issues, and lead effectively, knowing that the people we engage with are walking with us, not following us blindly. The subtle use of persuasion techniques, navigating influence with grace. While authenticity is the foundation, there are specific techniques that can subtly enhance our ability to influence others. These techniques are rooted in human psychology and are most effective when used ethically, with the intention of creating mutual benefit. The first of these techniques is the principle of reciprocity. People are more likely to respond positively when they feel they have received something of value. This doesn't always mean material gifts. It can be something as simple as giving someone our time, attention, or a genuine compliment. By offering something first, whether it's an insight, an act of kindness, or even a listening ear, we create a sense of obligation in others to reciprocate. This sense of reciprocity is hardwired into human nature. Another powerful technique is social proof. People tend to follow the crowd, especially in uncertain situations. When we can subtly show that others are aligned with our perspective through examples, testimonials, or demonstrations of collective agreement, we make it easier for others to adopt our viewpoint. This technique works because humans have an innate desire to belong to a group. The next technique is scarcity. We tend to value things more when we believe they are scarce or limited in some way. By highlighting the unique nature of an opportunity, a resource, or an idea, we tap into this psychological trigger. This does not mean misleading others about the value of something. It simply means framing an idea or opportunity in a way that highlights its uniqueness, its timeliness, or its potential for growth. A fourth technique involves the principle of authority. People are more likely to be influenced by those they perceive as experts or credible sources of information. This doesn't require us to be an expert in everything we engage with, but rather to position ourselves as credible through our knowledge, experience, or demonstrated expertise. By communicating confidence in what we offer, backed by knowledge or past success, we increase our ability to influence. Finally, we have the principle of consistency. Once people commit to something, they are more likely to follow through, especially if their commitment is public or written down. This technique plays on our need to be consistent with our own actions and words. By encouraging small initial commitments, whether it's a small agreement, a shared decision, or even a simple yes to a question, we pave the way for greater agreement down the line. Each of these techniques, when used skillfully and ethically, can enhance our influence in meaningful ways. However, they must always be grounded in authenticity. Influence at its best is never about manipulation. It's about helping others see the value of our ideas, guiding them gently toward decisions that align with their best interests, and doing so with empathy, respect, and integrity. Chapter 12. Developing Empathy, the cornerstone of human connection. The nature of empathy, understanding beyond the surface. Empathy is the capacity to understand and share the feelings of another. It is the fundamental glue that binds human relationships and creates a space where individuals feel heard, seen, and valued. However, empathy is often misunderstood. It's not merely about feeling sorry for someone or feeling what they feel. It's much deeper than that. True empathy involves stepping outside of yourself to experience the world through someone else's eyes. It is the ability to recognize their emotions, understand the root causes of those emotions, and respond in a way that acknowledges and validates their experience. The first layer of empathy is cognitive, understanding the emotions of others and recognizing their perspective. This means being able to put yourself in their shoes, even if their world is vastly different from your own. Cognitive empathy is not about agreeing with their point of view, but about understanding it. It's about suspending judgment and listening actively, asking questions, and observing their body language to gather as much information as possible about how they are feeling. The second layer is emotional empathy, feeling what the other person feels. This doesn't mean losing yourself in their emotions, but rather being able to resonate with their experience. Emotional empathy allows us to connect with others on a deeper level, as we are not just observing their emotions, but also emotionally attuned to them. Finally, the third layer is compassionate empathy, which goes beyond understanding and feeling to include the desire to help or alleviate their suffering. Compassionate empathy involves acting on the understanding and emotional resonance we experience to support the other person in meaningful ways. Empathy is not a one-size-fits-all skill. It varies depending on the relationship and the context. In a professional setting, empathy might look like understanding a colleague's frustration with a difficult task and offering practical solutions. In a personal relationship, it might involve sitting with someone in their grief and offering comfort without trying to immediately fix the problem. Regardless of the context, empathy is always rooted in active listening, attentiveness, and a genuine desire to understand. It is the art of connecting with another person on a human level, beyond words, and recognizing their inherent value. When empathy is present, it creates a safe space for authentic connection to blossom. People feel understood and appreciated, and this strengthens relationships, builds trust, and fosters a sense of belonging. Active listening. The heart of empathy. Listening is the foundation of empathy. Without active listening, empathy cannot exist. Active listening is more than hearing someone speak. It is an intentional, focused, and present act of engaging with the other person's words and emotions. It requires giving the speaker our full attention, removing distractions, and resisting the urge to interrupt or offer solutions before the speaker has finished expressing themselves. Active listening involves both verbal and nonverbal cues. Verbally, we might show that we are listening by paraphrasing what the other person has said, asking clarifying questions, or simply nodding in agreement. Non-verbally, our body language conveys attentiveness. Eye contact, open posture, and facing the speaker are all ways to demonstrate that we are engaged. The first step in active listening is to be present. This means putting aside our thoughts, judgments, and distractions to focus entirely on the speaker. We might need to quiet our internal dialogue and stop formulating our response while the other person is talking. By doing so, we create a space where the speaker feels safe and valued. The second step is to reflect what we have heard. This might involve summarizing what the person has said to ensure that we understand their message accurately. For example, what I'm hearing is that you're feeling overwhelmed by the project deadlines. Is that right? This shows the speaker that we are not just hearing their words, but are truly processing their emotions and thoughts. The third step is to empathize. Once we understand the content of what the speaker is sharing, we can offer emotional support by acknowledging their feelings. For instance, we might say, "I can imagine how stressful that must be for you." It sounds like a lot to handle. Empathy here is not about fixing the problem, but about validating the person's emotions. It's about saying, "Your experience matters and I understand how you feel." Active listening requires us to be patient and non-judgmental. It is easy to fall into the trap of wanting to solve the problem or offering unsolicited advice. But empathy thrives when we resist the urge to fix and simply hold space for the other person to express themselves. Sometimes, the best thing we can do for someone is to listen without offering solutions, just providing a compassionate presence. Active listening is a skill that requires practice, but it is one of the most powerful tools for building empathy. When we listen with empathy, we create an environment where people feel seen, heard, and valued. And that is the essence of human connection. Cultivating empathy, practices for developing deeper connections. While some people may have a natural inclination toward empathy, it is a skill that can be cultivated and strengthened over time. Developing empathy requires intentional practice and a willingness to step outside of ourselves to understand others. One practice for cultivating empathy is perspective taking. This involves intentionally imagining ourselves in someone else's shoes and considering their thoughts, feelings, and experiences. It may be helpful to ask ourselves, what might they be going through right now? How might they be feeling in this moment? By doing so, we expand our capacity to empathize with people from different walks of life, especially when their experiences differ from our own. Perspective taking helps us overcome biases, assumptions, and stereotypes by allowing us to see the world from someone else's viewpoint. Another practice for cultivating empathy is engaging in active emotional recognition. This involves paying attention to the emotions we are experiencing and becoming more attuned to the emotions of others. We can do this by observing facial expressions, body language, and vocal tone. Recognizing the emotions of others allows us to respond with greater sensitivity, tailoring our words and actions to their emotional state. It also helps us manage our own emotional reactions and avoid reacting impulsively. A third practice is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to be fully present in the moment, without judgment or distraction. It allows us to connect with ourselves and others in a deeper way, without the noise of our thoughts or the distractions of technology. Practicing mindfulness helps us develop greater emotional intelligence, which is crucial for cultivating empathy. When we are mindful, we are better able to tune into the emotions of others and respond with kindness, patience, and understanding. Additionally, volunteering or engaging in acts of service can enhance empathy by exposing us to diverse experiences and challenges. When we serve others, we step outside of our own concerns and become attuned to the struggles and needs of those around us. Volunteering fosters a sense of shared humanity and strengthens our ability to connect with people from different backgrounds. Finally, practicing empathy also involves self-compassion. It's difficult to empathize with others if we are not compassionate with ourselves. By treating ourselves with kindness, we create the emotional space needed to offer empathy to others. When we accept our own vulnerabilities and imperfections, we are better able to extend the same understanding to those around us. Empathy is not just a skill. It is a mindset. It is a way of being in the world that values connection, understanding, and mutual respect. The more we practice empathy, the more we deepen our relationships and create meaningful connections with others. And in doing so, we contribute to a world where people feel valued, understood, and supported. Chapter 13, Conflict Resolution, Turning Challenges into Opportunities for Growth. The nature of conflict, understanding the roots and dynamics. Conflict is a natural part of human interaction. It's inevitable that, at some point, differing viewpoints, misunderstandings, or misaligned interests will lead to tension. However, conflict, when approached with the right mindset, need not be destructive. In fact, conflict can be a powerful catalyst for growth, innovation, and deeper connection. The first step in effective conflict resolution is understanding that conflict often arises from unmet needs or desires. When people's core needs, whether for respect, validation, or understanding, are threatened, emotions flare. These emotional responses are often what drive the conflict, overshadowing the logical or factual elements of the disagreement. Understanding this emotional undercurrent is critical to resolving conflicts in a healthy way. Conflict is rarely just about the issue at hand. It's often about how people feel about the issue. This is where emotional intelligence comes into play. It's not enough to address the problem. We must also address the feelings associated with it. When we fail to recognize the emotional dynamics at play, conflict can escalate quickly, leading to defensiveness, anger, or even withdrawal. However, when we take the time to understand the emotions fueling the conflict, we can move beyond surface-level disagreements to a place of deeper understanding. Another crucial aspect of conflict is that it often involves differing perspectives. Two people can experience the same situation in entirely different ways, depending on their backgrounds, values, and experiences. Recognizing that everyone has a unique lens through which they view the world is vital to resolving conflict. This perspective taking allows us to approach disagreements with a sense of curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of assuming that our way is the only valid way, we open ourselves to understanding why the other person feels the way they do. The ultimate goal in conflict resolution is not to win, but to create an outcome that acknowledges both parties' needs, respects their perspectives, and fosters mutual understanding. Conflict, when handled correctly, is an opportunity for both individuals to grow and strengthen their relationship. Strategies for resolving conflict, approaches that lead to positive outcomes. The next step in resolving conflict is developing strategies that allow for both individuals to feel heard, respected, and understood. One of the most effective strategies for conflict resolution is active listening. Active listening, as explored in previous chapters, involves not just hearing the other person's words, but also understanding the emotions behind those words. It requires us to be fully present, to resist the urge to interrupt, and to demonstrate through both verbal and nonverbal cues that we are engaged and empathetic. When we listen actively during a conflict, we validate the other person's feelings and perspectives. This alone can go a long way toward de-escalating tension. Often, people in conflict simply want to feel heard. Once they feel understood, they are much more likely to be open to finding a solution. A second strategy is to use I statements rather than you statements. When we say, "You always interrupt me," the other person is likely to feel blamed and become defensive. However, if we say, "I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted," we are expressing our own experience rather than accusing the other person. This subtle shift in language can significantly reduce defensiveness and create a more open, non-confrontational dialogue. Another powerful strategy is reframing. Reframing involves taking a negative or challenging statement and presenting it in a more neutral or positive light. For example, instead of saying, "You're being unreasonable," we might say, "It seems like we have different priorities here. Let's try to understand each other's perspective." Reframing helps shift the focus from blame to understanding and collaboration. It transforms the conflict from a battle of wills into a problem-solving exercise. A fourth strategy involves finding common ground. In any conflict, there are often shared values or goals that both parties care about. For example, in a workplace conflict, both parties may be committed to the success of the project or the well-being of the team. By identifying these common goals, we create a foundation on which to build a resolution. Instead of focusing solely on differences, we can emphasize what we both stand to gain by working together. The final strategy is seeking win-win solutions. In many conflicts, both parties assume that they must compromise on something in order to resolve the issue. However, A win-win solution is one in which both individuals feel that their needs have been met in a fair and balanced way. Achieving a win-win solution requires creativity, collaboration, and a willingness to think outside the box. It may involve finding new ways to meet both parties' needs or exploring alternative solutions that satisfy both sides. Resolving conflict is not about defeating the other person. It is about finding a way to move forward together. By employing these strategies, active listening, I statements, reframing, finding common ground, and seeking win-win solutions, we can transform conflict into an opportunity for growth and understanding. The role of emotional regulation. Keeping calm in the face of conflict. One of the most challenging aspects of conflict is managing our own emotions. When we are engaged in a conflict, it is easy to get swept up in the heat of the moment, allowing our emotions to dictate our responses. However, emotional regulation is a key skill in conflict resolution. Emotional regulation involves recognizing and managing our emotions in a way that allows us to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. The first step in emotional regulation is self-awareness. This means noticing when our emotions are rising and becoming conscious of the physical sensations that accompany those emotions. Do we feel tension in our bodies? Are our hearts racing? Are we clenching our fists or jaw? These physical cues can alert us to the fact that we are becoming emotionally triggered. Once we are aware of our emotions, we can then decide how to respond. One useful technique for managing strong emotions is taking a pause. When we feel ourselves becoming overwhelmed, we can take a deep breath, step away from the situation, and give ourselves time to calm down. This pause allows us to collect our thoughts and approach the situation with a clearer mind. It also prevents us from saying or doing things we might later regret. Another technique for emotional regulation is reframing our thoughts. Often, our emotional responses to conflict are fueled by our interpretation of the situation. If we view the conflict as a personal attack, we are more likely to respond with anger or defensiveness. However, if we reframe the situation as a misunderstanding or a difference in perspective, we are more likely to approach the conflict with curiosity and openness. Mindfulness practices, such as deep breathing or meditation, can also help regulate our emotions in high-stress situations. These practices allow us to remain present, calm, and grounded, even when the conversation becomes tense. Finally, empathy plays a crucial role in emotional regulation. When we empathize with the other person's feelings, we are less likely to become defensive or reactive. By recognizing their emotions and understanding their perspective, we create an emotional space where we can respond with kindness and patience. Emotional regulation is not about suppressing our feelings or pretending that we are not upset. Rather, it is about acknowledging our emotions and choosing to respond in a way that aligns with our values and goals. By regulating our emotions during conflict, we maintain control over the situation, ensuring that the resolution is constructive and collaborative.